एंड वेलकम एवरीवन। सो फ्रॉम पास्ट फ्यू मंथ्स हम लोग नए नए फील्ड्स को देख रहे हैं इन दी लॉ फील्ड कि कहीं हम लोग जजशिप को देख रहे हैं, कहीं हम एडवोकेसी को देख रहे हैं, कोर्ट सब कैसे फंक्शन कर रहा है और कैसा वर्क होता है। बट टुडे वी हैव समवन हमारे साथ, दीपक सर हैं जिन्होंने लॉ क्लर्क का एग्जाम क्लियर करा एंड वो लॉ क्लर्क रह चुके हैं। एंड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली कि सर भी एनएलयू ओडिशा से ग्रेजुएट हैं ऑफ द ईयर 2020। तो आज सर से हम पूरी थोड़ी सी क्लैट की जर्नी जानेंगे जो आपके लिए बहुत हेल्पफुल रहेगा, और एक आइडिया लेंगे कि लॉ क्लर्क सिस्टम कैसे वर्क करता है, उससे क्या एडवांटेजेस हैं, एंड ओवरऑल थिंग हम लोग देखेंगे। ठीक है। सो वेलकम सर, वेलकम दीपक सर फॉर कमिंग इन। थैंक यू वेरी मच सर।
Thank you, Avinash. Thank you for having me. I'll be sharing my Clat journey as well as how law clerkship works in the Supreme Court. So, yes, thank you very much for having me.
सर फर्स्टली सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि आपका बैकग्राउंड कैसा है, मतलब आप क्लास 12 तक कैसे थे, कहाँ से पढ़े हैं, एंड व्हाट वाज इट ऑल अबाउट।
Okay, that's such a it's really nice, a good question actually. I belong to a very humble background. We moved to Lucknow from Bihar back in 2014.
ओके।
And let me tell you very interesting anecdote that I actually initially when I did not know about the CLAT, I thought that getting into RML was a very easy. You just had to show your certificate and they take you in. That's
करेक्ट।
what I initially thought. But I was introduced to CLAT by my friend who was preparing for CLAT in 2015, and the same year I wrote CLAT. So I belong to a very humble background. We from Bihar, and my family moved to Lucknow in 2012.
मेरा थोड़ा सा क्लैट जर्नी में आपके कुछ थोड़ा सा डिटेल में क्वेश्चंस है, लाइक आपने जो क्लैट की प्रिपरेशन करी थी वो कितने मंथ्स की थी या ईयर की थी, वी कैन
Yes,
गेट।
yes, Avinash. So मैंने अपनी जो क्लैट कोचिंग ज्वाइन की थी वो दिसंबर 2014 में ज्वाइन की थी. I was a bit late,
करेक्ट।
bit late. So I enrolled myself with Clat Possible. There was a coaching
हाँ,
institute located in Hajatganj.
आई एम फ्रॉम दैट
And
सर।
अच्छा, that's really nice to know. और मैंने दिसंबर में ज्वाइन किया, was a bit late, और मैं enroll किया और काफी अच्छी कोचिंग है. And they provided me everything possible to help us clear Clat.
करेक्ट
तो
सर।
वो 5 महीने की प्रिपरेशन थी. आई वर्क रियली हार्ड फॉर दोज 5 मंथ्स. काफी चेंजेस आए और उस टाइम क्लैट काफी डिफरेंट हुआ करता था. दे हैड 200 क्वेश्चंस,
करेक्ट।
out of which 50 were allotted to GK and 50 were allotted to legal, and the rest were allotted to other subjects including mathematics.
करेक्ट।
So I talked to I spoke to my junior. He has told me that CLAT has undertaken a radical change in syllabus. Now syllabus is entirely different from what it used to be in 2015. तो ये था. And I wrote a lot of mocks during my CLAT preparation, क्योंकि CP में सबसे बेस्ट पार्ट ये थी about the CP CLAT possible is that वो हमेशा हर संडे को मॉक करवाते थे.
करेक्ट।
And they had a very wide student base. Therefore, we could actually test our potential. We could test our marks.
हम्म।
तो काफी अच्छा होता था. ऑल इंडिया रैंकिंग आती थी एंड वी कुड नो हाउ मच वी आर स्कोरिंग एंड वेयर वी स्टूड. तो काफी हेल्पफुल था उनकी मॉक जो सीरीज होती थी, काफी हेल्पफुल थी. एंड आई ऑलमोस्ट रोट 50 मॉक्स बिफोर आई रोट द मेन एग्जामिनेशन.
ओके,
यस.
दैट्स एन इनक्रेडिबल थिंग कि हर क्लास स्टूडेंट को एटलीस्ट 50 मॉक्स तो देने चाहिए, ईयर में तो देना ही चाहिए, एंड सर ने तो 5-6 मंथ्स में ही 50 मॉक्स दिए थे।
दे शुड क्योंकि इससे क्या होता है कि कई ऐसे क्वेश्चंस होते हैं जो रिपीटेड होते हैं. दे हैव बीन आस्क्ड इन मेनी एग्जामिनेशन इंक्लूडिंग क्लैट. तो उसमें अगर आप मॉक दे रहे हैं तो काइंड ऑफ एक सर्टेनिटी बन जाती है. आपके आंसर्स आप करेक्ट मार्क करने लगते हैं. यू स्टार्ट हैविंग अ प्रैक्टिस ऑफ मार्किंग द करेक्ट आंसर, बिकॉज क्लैट में सबसे प्रॉब्लमेटिक सिचुएशन ये होती है कि दे गिव यू 4 ऑप्शंस व्हिच आर वेरी सिमिलर इन नेचर. यू हैव टू मार्क द मोस्ट एप्रोप्रिएट वन. सो इट्स दैट्स द कैच. क्लैट का सबसे बेस्ट पार्ट यही होता है कि makes it tougher to mark the most appropriate answer. You know it. You have been through that journey, right?
यस। सो सर मेरा नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आपसे ये है कि आपकी क्या क्लैट में रैंक थी, एंड एनएलयू ओ का मतलब एनएलयू ओडिशा में क्या ऐसा एक्सपीरियंस था ओवरऑल आपका।
My CLAT rank was 1192. और काफी 1192 में CLAT की रैंक थी. और 2015 में सिलेबस काफी चेंज हो गया था. We were not expecting that kind of paper in 2015.
करेक्ट।
I got into NLU Odisha. And NLU Odisha, if I were to summarize my 5-year journey in NLU Odisha, I would just, in one word, I would just say amazing. Because NLU Odisha provided me every opportunity to grow and to be a better person. So, हमारे first year, right from the first year, we had very good professors. I would name a few professors who taught us Abik Mazumdar sir, Dr. Awais Hassan Khan, who taught us personal law. So his teachings have forever etched in my mind. And my college had a very good mooting culture. We had very good seniors who participated in many moot competitions, also won it.
Correct.
I think you know it, like we NLU performed very well in memorials. We would win memorials of every moot court competition.
Correct, sir.
So it provided me space to participate in competitions, particularly moot court competitions. So during the stint of 5 years, I participated in almost 5 moot court competitions. And we also had this intra-institute moot court competition, on the basis of which we would be allotted national international moot court competition. So it was a very competitive environment in my college. Everybody was in mooting. To be honest, in my batch, almost everybody was in mooting. So yes, my college provided me ample space to progress, and scrutinized me and subjected to discipline. So I owe everything to my college, my professors, and that's what the college does. It does not teach you the entire subject. It teaches you how to read a particular subject.
Definitely, sir. Judicial clerkship, सर
Yes.
वो थॉट क्या आपके माइंड में आया कि आपको जुडिशियल क्लर्कशिप क्यों लेना है, एंड उसे क्या एडवांटेजेस हैं, एंड सब कुछ कैसे वर्क करता है इन दिस थिंग?
ओके, सो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जुडिशियल क्लर्कशिप बहुत लोगों को नहीं पता है. Most of the students from the top NLUs or Jindal or DU, they know about the clerkship, but when we yes, so it's not very famous. It's not very as in the United States of America. Clerkship, the Supreme Court judge of the United States of America is a very prestigious job, and the clerkship can easily get into any law firm or any government organization. But in India, it's not very widely known by the students, amongst the students. So clerkship, so how I made my mind to do the clerkship, because I had a senior, Vineet Divedi. He was 2018 graduate. And I was still in my 5th year. I got to know that he was clerking with Justice Arun Mishra, who was one of the best judges in the Supreme Court. So I got to know about him, and I spoke to him, and he told me everything about the clerkship. That's how I got to know for the very first time about the clerkship. And he told me how it works, how to get into clerkship. And from that time onwards, I made up a mind to do clerkship for at least 1 year after graduating. He also told me that clerkship makes it clear. Clerkship makes your mind clear as to what you are going to do the next step. Correct. So that's how I first came to know about the clerkship process.
ओके सर, और सर इसका प्रोसेस कैसा है सिलेक्शन का, एंड क्लर्कशिप में व्हाट्स द प्रोसेस, मींस एग्जाम रहता है, कैसे सिलेक्शन होता है?
See, Avinash, every judge is entitled to have 4 law clerks. Every judge is entitled to have 4 law clerks. Out of 4 law clerks, 1 has to be from the panel, from the examination. 3 he can take in through his discretion. At his discretion, he can take 3 other law clerks. Okay. Now, Supreme Court Registry publishes an advertisement for recruiting law clerk in January every year. Sometimes it has happened that they have not published the advertisement at all. Like this year, they did not conduct the examination. Now, coming to the examination, because I got into the clerkship through the examination, so I am 100% certain about how it works, not about the reference, because it's a very dicey area I would not like to get into.
Correct.
Right? Yes. So Supreme Court conducts an examination to filter out the candidates, and then they take interviews. They conduct interviews to select the law clerks to work with the Supreme Court. Now, this paper consists of 150 questions. 150 questions. There are 2 sections of the paper. In the paper, section 1 consists of 50 marks. Questions from GK, logical reasoning, and English are asked from section number 1. And in section number 2, there are the core laws: constitutional law, IPC, evidence, CRPC, and CPC. There are 100 questions. 20 questions are allotted to every subject. 20 questions are allotted to constitutional law, 20 questions are allotted to evidence act, and 20 questions are allotted to CRPC in the series. So there are 2 sections. There are 30 questions for English. Now, if someone is willing to work with a Supreme Court judge and wants to appear for the examination, he has to prepare his vocabulary, his own legal vocabulary for English section. And he has to work in his grammar, because they ask you very complex questions in English section. So that's how it works. And I may also go ahead and tell you
Yes, sir.
A candidate can prepare for CRPC and evidence, right?
Yes,
Like
sir.
if you could allow me.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
So in English section, a candidate has to work on his passage skills as well as his synonyms and tonyms.
Mm-hmm.
And they also like, for example, they ask you very basic questions. They ask you basic questions. They also ask you idioms. For example, burned his fingers,
Correct.
right? Riding the high horse. You know it, right?
Okay,
Because
okay. Yes,
we also learned these idioms and phrases when we were preparing for
sir.
Clat examination.
Yes.
So it's not very difficult, but it's a bit competitive. There are 5,000 candidates who appear for clerkship. Only roughly 50 people get into clerkship every year. So
Hmm.
it gets a bit competitive. So
Oh.
I think the candidate has to be thorough with English knowledge, grammar, because passages are given and he has to sift
Hmm.
out, choose a most appropriate answer. As far as the GK is concerned, they do not ask you. They ask you questions from the events that have happened in the last 6 months. Do not prepare for a year, because usually in
Hmm.
all the competitive examination, for example, Clat, we would prepare for GK of 1 year
Correct, sir.
before the exam takes place, right? So they ask you events from 6 months. So, for example, if the exam is conducted on 4th April,
Hmm.
clerkship exam is
Correct.
usually conducted in the month of April. You need to prepare the GK 6 months before the examination, from December,
Hmm.
from December to April. You don't have to prepare anything from May or June or August. You have to prepare from December to April. They ask you for 6 months. That's it.
Hmm.
That's their criteria is that's everything about the GK. They
Correct.
sometimes ask you reasoning, very easy reasoning. Anybody can answer it without even studying
Correct. We got it.
for the reasoning. When it comes to the core subjects of law, they ask you constitution, CRP, evidence, CPC. Now, I think one has to be thorough with the Bear Act, because they ask you very basic questions sometimes, and one has to thorough with the Bear Act, as well as a reference can be taken from the reference book, because they ask you
Hmm.
case laws which
Correct.
are very important, and all the recent judgments which have been rendered by the Supreme Court. For
Hmm.
example, the last year they asked the case of Anuradha Basin versus Union of India. So
Hmm.
they asked you the recent judgments which have been pronounced by the Supreme Court. So I think one need to be thorough with the recent judgment as well in the constitutional law, apart from going through the Bear Act thoroughly. Uh, yes. So coming to the CRPC, they ask a lot of questions from definition section.
Hmm.
Section 2C, section 2CL, cognizable, the difference between non-cognizable, cognizable offenses. They will ask a lot of questions from definition. Apart from that, they ask you the case laws, the landmark case laws in CRPC,
Correct.
which are not there are not too many landmark cases in the CRPC as in the Constitution,
Hmm.
right? Because there are a lot of there are the few cases which are landmark, which can be considered to be a landmark, like Arnesh Kumar, Laida Kumari, wherein Supreme Court held that registering FIR is mandatory.
Hmm.
So there are few landmarks judgments which candidate need to prepare. Now, Evidence Act, just a Bear Act will do. Just going through a Bear Act will do. It
Correct.
has nothing. We don't have to devise a different strategy for Evidence Act. Just have to go through the Bear Act. In the same with the CPC, they ask a lot of questions from definition section. Definition section, one has to be thorough with the definition section of the CPC.
Hmm.
And orders and rules are must. One has to go through all the orders and rules to score good marks in CPC, and the same with same with the CRPC. So
Correct.
that's how a candidate can actually ace the examination
Correct.
by being thorough with the Bear Act.
सर आपने बहुत अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन कर दिया ये पूरा प्रोसेस व्हाट ऑल कम्स इन केस लॉज एंड एवरीथिंग आई थिंक ऑलमोस्ट एवरीथिंग इज कवर्ड हाउ वन शुड
Because Avinash, there are not a lot of information about the clerkship in
यस सर
public domain.
यस
There are
सर
there are many candidates who find who look for the previous year's questions, but it's not available in the public domain.
ओके
Yes,
ओके आई डिडंट नो
yes,
दैट
yes.
सर माय नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज सर कि जो जुडिशियल क्लर्कशिप है वो कितने इयर्स की होती है लाइक आई हैव मोस्टली सीन 1-2 years आई थिंक एंड आई वाज इंटर्निंग अंडर अ जज इन द हाई कोर्ट तो वहां भी मैंने बहुत सारे लॉ क्लर्क को देखा एंड मोस्टली रिसर्च वर्क ही शायद होता है एज अ लॉ क्लर्क एंड तो सर मैं यही जानना चाहूंगा नंबर ऑफ इयर्स कितने होते हैं एंड द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज कि हाई कोर्ट एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट में एज अ क्लर्कशिप क्या डिफरेंट क्राइटेरियाज हैं और इज द सेम थिंग सेम एग्जाम एवरीथिंग गोज लाइक सेम
So, Avinash, in the Supreme Court, the tenure of a law clerk is 1 year. That's the initial 1 year.
Okay.
Beyond 1 year, it can be extended by the concerned judge with
Ah,
whom a law clerk attached. So for on record for the practical purpose, it is 1 year. It is
hmm,
1 year. After
hmm,
that, your tenure is over.
correct.
But there are many law clerks who have been working for 2.5 years, 3 years, 2 years. It depends at the discretion of the judge.
Hmm, hmm,
Now, the primary difference between a Supreme Court clerkship and the High Court is the Supreme Court pays you more than a High Court. That's a difference.
okay.
And working at Supreme Court is entirely a different experience because you get to know and you get to know a lot of senior advocates who work at the Supreme Court.
Hmm,
You also get in touch with them and you learn from them. You learn from them. You learn from the best minds of the country, right?
hmm,
Apart from that, you attend the court proceedings. Supreme Court is the only court which can actually mold the law. You don't have to state the facts all the time. You can also state the law before the Supreme Court judge, and he can mold the law.
hmm,
And you meet the best minds of the country. So the only difference between law clerkship at the High Court and Supreme Court is the pay as well as the exposure you get in the Supreme Court.
correct.
I don't know a lot about the High Court clerkship, but the High Courts pay you less, and it's also consideration because once you are settled in Delhi, once let's say I am from Lucknow, I
Hmm,
went to Delhi, I had to pay a lot to get an accommodation.
hmm,
There were
hmm,
a lot of other things which accommodation, fooding, everything for which I had to pay. Supreme
correct.
Court pays you very decently. It pays you 65,000 rupees for a month,
Oh, wow.
which is perhaps going to be increased in the coming months, since you Justice Honorable Chief Justice Ulet is a very pro law
Hmm,
clerk, and Justice Chanchud as well. So they are going to there have been speculations that they are going to increase the salary as well.
wow.
Uh, on the contrary, the high courts pay you very less. I have few friends who work at the Allahabad High Court as a law clerk
Hmm,
with judges. The High Court pays you 15,000 rupees for a month,
okay.
in which it is difficult to sustain. I mean, a person who goes from Lucknow to Allahabad, let's say he's allocated Allahabad High Court,
Correct, correct.
it is very difficult to sustain Allahabad in just 15,000 rupees. So, well, money is not always the consideration. It's also about the learning uh,
Correct,
we
sir.
get from. Yes, so not always a consideration.
एंड सर आई हैव लिसन टू मेनी स्टोरीज जो बहुत लोग बताते थे कि बहुत सारे जो हिस्टोरिक जजमेंट्स होते हैं उसमें रिसर्चर्स बहुत सारे हेल्प करते हैं इन दैट कि मतलब कैसे उनको भी डिसीजन लेता है जज को भी कैसे डिसीजंस लेने हैं ऑनरेबल जज को भी तो उसमें बहुत सारे कंसिडरेशन होते हैं उसमें रिसर्चर एज अ लॉ क्लर्क का भी बहुत ज्यादा रोल होता है आई वांट टू नो दैट
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a very good question because I've had my own experience of it.
हम्म
I would love to talk about this thing. So usually when you are assigned to a judge, he gives you research work.
हम्म
He asks you to conduct research work because he has to incorporate that research work in his judgment.
करेक्ट
So
सर
let's say my fellow law clerks who were working with me, we were asked to conduct a research on Anganwadi workers. There
हम्म
was a case wherein the Gujarat High Court denied the Anganwadi workers the gratuity under the Payment of Gratuity Act.
करेक्ट
And the
सर
Supreme Court overturned that decision.
वाओ
Supreme Court overturned that decision and held that the Payment of Gratuity Act will also be applicable to Anganwadi workers because they are performing a very sacrosanct duty.
हम्म
Right. So we conduct research, and my judge particularly incorporated all the research we did in his judgment, which
हम्म
was of valuable assistance to him. And we were also thrilled that our research was incorporated in judgment that had a very wide social impact,
करेक्ट सर
right? Yeah, on people, Anganwadi workers throughout the country, because once the Supreme Court decided, it has to be followed by all the high courts and the lower
करेक्ट
courts.
करेक्ट
So we were really thrilled to have contributed to a judgment of Supreme Court, and yes, law clerks actually contribute to to decision making process of a Supreme Court judge. So there were many instances. If There were many instances we helped the judge and the law clerks do it in the same way.
And that's an incredible story sir कि मतलब हम लोग बहुत ही historic judgments के as a law clerk part रह सकते हैं means you help in that
Yes, law clerks do, और जजेस काम देते हैं काफी, और आप कंट्रीब्यूट करते हैं. It feels really good, feels surreal
correct correct
to be a part of a judgment. Like there was one judgment wherein the Supreme Court reduced a conviction of a woman who was aged 72 years old. She was very old, very old.
hmm
72 years old. She was sentenced for 15 years by the High Court.
Hmm.
Supreme Court reduced the sentence from 15 years to 12 years, the period already undergone by her.
Hmm.
So we basically, the judges ask us for the citation, just ask for similar cases wherein sentence has been reduced by the Supreme Court.
Correct.
So yes, it has an impact on the judgment. Yes.
हमारे इस कॉलेज के सीनियर थे अनुराग भास्कर सर, एंड
Yes. Yes.
लॉ क्लर्क रह चुके हैं, एंड आफ्टर दैट
Uh,
वेंट टू हार्वर्ड एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड फाइनली प्रोफेसर प्रोफेसर हैं. तो सर माय नेक्स्ट
yes. Yes.
है कि सर जुडिशियल क्लर्कशिप से क्या अच्छा एलएलएम में कोई फायदा होता है, कोई प्रॉफिट होता है, एडवांटेज होता है? मुझे किसी ने बताया कि रिकमेंडेशन होता है थ्रू द जज एंड दिस ऑल थिंग हैपेंस. तो सर थोड़ा सा जानना
Yes.
चाहूंगा ब्रीफ.
Yes, yes. I think law clerk will certainly help you in getting into the best law school, particularly US, because US में work experience पे आपको admission मिलता है.
हम्म.
So most of the people, even in my batch, most of the people are doing clerkship just for the sake of getting LOR from the judge,
हम्म.
letter of recommendation from a judge. So,
Correct.
so letter of recommendation from a judge, sitting judge, helps you a lot into getting in getting you
हम्म.
a good law school in US.
हम्म.
UK में I believe आप academic LOR is very important, not the work experience, because UK में आपका mark base पे ज़्यादा admission होता है. For
हम्म.
example, Anurag Bhaskar sir did his clerkship with Honorable Justice D.Y. Chanchur
Yes.
and went to Harvard Law School after that. So it definitely might have helped him getting into the best law school in the world. So it helps you a lot. Once you have finished your tenure for 1 year or 2 years, the judges don't hesitate to write an LOR
Correct.
for you. And it certainly helps you. The work experience certainly helps you getting a very good law school. It does.
एंड सर हाउ इज दिस डिसाइडेड कि सर आप किस जज के साथ एज अ लॉ क्लर्क रहेंगे? सर ये उनका स्ट्रक्चर है कि हाउ इज दिस ऑल डिसाइडेड?
That's a very dicey question, Avinash, because few days back I wrote a paper on how the law clerkship works with the Supreme Court of India and how the registry recruits law clerks. I think you must have read my article.
No, sir, I haven't
No,
read.
no.
No.
Okay. So I wrote an article on live law on how law clerkship works with the Supreme Court of India. So once you clear the examination, you are once you take examination, you appear for the interviews, you are recommended for the recruitment of law clerks. Now, there is an administrative division of the Supreme Court that is called registry. Registry, you know registry, right? There is a registry for every High Court and Supreme Court. That is, it is an administrative division of the Supreme Court. It allocates the law clerks to the judges. Now, the Supreme Court registry is not very, I would say, competent. I know it's a very harsh word, but Supreme Court registry is not very competent. They last year in 2021 they selected 100 law clerks. They selected 100 law clerks out of 4,000 people, roughly, I guess. Would you believe the fact that there are still 35 candidates who are still looking for the clerkship with a Supreme Court judge? So this is a fact very less known to the candidates who are willing to, who are looking for a judicial law clerkship. Qualifying exam does not does not promise you to work with a Supreme Court judge. If you have gotten into top 20, top 30 rank, then you are surely going to get a call from a Supreme Court judge. Otherwise, it's a very long procedure. You would have to wait for 5 months, 6 months. I'm telling you, there's still 35 students, there's still 35 candidates who are still waiting for a call from the Supreme Court judge. They're still running pillars, post to pillars to get a clerkship. So it's not a very opaque process. I think there's no transparency in the recruitment. That's the reason I wrote an article on live law.
I think it's an administrative issue, much of an administrative issue. Ki kaise
it is an administrative issue, no doubt. It is an administrative issue. It is with the registry. So registry, yes, it's the administrative issue. Yes.
Sir, I've gone through your LinkedIn, तो मुझे पता चला कि आप इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट एज मे बी शायद वर्क कर चुके हैं फॉर एन ईयर. सो सर कैसा एक्सपीरियंस था आपका इन एडवोकेसी? हाउ वाज योर एक्सपीरियंस देयर?
So my experience as an advocate was very good. I worked for a year, but since the COVID-induced lockdown was in force, therefore there was not a lot of exposure I gained. Correct. I hope you understand, because at that time all the courts were shut and we did not get an ample opportunity to work with senior advocates or the advocates. So I would not talk about that period because due to the COVID, not a lot of things happened. right? You know this thing.
Correct.
So yes, but I intend to start a practice in Lucknow. I've moved back to Lucknow. I
Hmm.
will be working with a senior advocate at Lucknow High Court,
Hmm.
and this is what I intend to do.
Okay, so this is your future plan for right now, yes, sir? You want to...
Yes. I've always wanted to go for litigation. This is a very interesting thing. During the lockdowns, there were not a lot of things to do.
Correct.
So a friend of mine told me that there was a vacancy in the MP Judicial Services. So I appeared in the MP Judicial Service and cleared the prelims.
Uh-huh.
But 2 days before the 4 days before the we 4 days before we had our mains examination for MP Judiciary, Supreme Court clerkship result got out, and I did not appear for my mains examination MP Judiciary.
Okay.
So yes, so I cleared prelims. The examination was conducted on 20th March 2022, 21. And but since I did not want to go for judiciary, I decided to go for clerkship because there
Okay.
were not a lot of things I could do during the lockdown. So I basically utilized that time for the prelims and the mains.
तो सर आपका एमपी जुडिशरी में प्री का एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था? मींस क्या आपने ऐसा सॉल्व करके ही हो गया था एमसीक्यूज की, और क्या क्या करा था आपने?
So I filled the form in December,
हम्म.
and 1 month before the examination, because I was not following up the paper. So a friend of mine told me that the prelims, the dates for prelims had been announced, and therefore you should start preparing. I already had a good grasp over the constitutional law and the major laws, but as far as the local laws are concerned, I was not very good at it. So I took help from my friends who were very helpful. Anshay Chopra, Sanket Vasich, who is now a judge in the MP
Oh,
in
wow.
Madhya Pradesh. He cleared MP judiciary, and he was from my batch. So very hardworking person, and so he motivated me. And Anshay Chopra, he's also my batchmate.
Okay.
So I just had 1 month to prepare for local laws, because local laws are the laws which a lot of people neglect to go through it, and it puts you ahead in the race. It is a very scoring subject.
Correct.
So since my core subjects had already been prepared, I decided to focus on the local laws. And 20th March was the prelim paper, and I scored almost 127 marks, whereas the cutoff was 111 marks, I guess. So it was a very good experience for me. Worked really hard for that, but as destiny had it, I got the clerkship and decided not to sit for the mains paper. So it helps you like in 3-4 ways. The first is you get the better understanding of a law, because every day you have to prepare brief of the matters which are to be taken by a judge the next day. So we summarize the impugned judgment. We go through the laws. We sift through the main contention of the opposite counsel, as well as the victim, the defense, and the prosecution. So and there are diverse matters which come every day, right from the administrative tribunal to the service law. Because my judge was very good at service law, so I personally developed my own interest in service law just because of him, because he was a senior designated at Rajasthan High Court, and he was one of the best lawyer for service law. So I somehow developed an interest in service law just because of the clerkship, just because of the reason I worked with him. So it helps you a lot. It introduces to the new aspects of law every day. Apart from that, you attend the court proceeding every day. So we would attend the court proceeding from 10 to 1 post lunch. And we actually learned a lot after we started attending the courtroom, because we learned how senior advocates argue, how senior advocates convince a particular judge to give a favorable judgment.
Correct.
These are the courtroom advocacy. These are the art of courtroom advocacy, which you learn while working as a law clerk.
Correct.
And apart from that, there are many other small things which you learn in the court. For example, my judge, whenever there is an anticipatory bail application, he would primarily focus on the number of accused in the FIR and the number of accused who have been granted bail. On the basis of the parity, he would grant bail. And there were many advocates who would not include the number of accused people in the FIR and how many people have been granted bail. So these are the things we learned. So from a lawyer's perspective, from a person who wants to do litigation in future, it's very helpful, because whenever I have a case wherein I have to take anticipatory bail, I would definitely keep that in mind and include how many accused were there in the FIR, how many accused have been granted bail. So these are learnings you can only learn in the Supreme Court and with a judge. by being in his court. And my judge was he had a humanistic approach. He was justice oriented, and there were a lot of things. Of course, it would take a lot of time,
Correct,
therefore I would
correct.
not want to
Yes.
dwell into it. Yes, and
So
also instills confidence in you when you are law clerking as a Supreme Court judge, because we need to orally brief him every day on important question of law. So it
hmm,
also instills confidence whenever, if you're a lawyer, you want to practice at the High Court, you
hmm.
would not hesitate to put forth your contention before a High Court judge because you have already worked with a Supreme Court judge,
Correct, correct.
right? So that's something that the law clerkship does.
You told it very nicely कि जो है as an advocate कितना help करता है. You know how judges are working, what's their thought process, and accordingly
Absolutely.
written statement and हर चीज जो भी होता है कोर्ट में you prepare.
काफी छोटी छोटी चीजें मैटर करती हैं. आर्ट ऑफ एडवोकेसी जब
Yes.
डिफरेंट होती है. मेरे सामने कई ऐसे वकील थे जो ये they they used to directly state the law.
Okay.
They used to directly state the law when the matter was, for example, when the matter was first taken up for hearing. Now, my judge and the fellow his brother judges would say that you state the fact, not the law, because law we will consider law later on. You state the fact because at the stage of admission you have to state the fact. You have to convince us that this is a fact, and the basis of which we need to accept. We have to accept the PIL or let's say SLP, anything like that. So this is a very important lesson for all the candidates who want to work in litigation. That state the fact, not the law, at the stage of admission. That's what I learned from my judge.
And so, according to what all you have done, you have told, तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि for anyone who wants to go for litigation या LLM में कुछ भी करना चाहते हैं, so I think law clerk is one of the best thing. मतलब एक ऐसा experience overall wholesome experience मिलता है. You get to know सारा perspective ही change आता है about how.
It clears your mind. Even if you want to go for litigation or want to do a LLM, it helps you in all the ways. Even if you are a judiciary aspirant, for example, there are a lot of people who are preparing for judiciary. It also helps them because you have to work from 10 to 10 at night. There's no fixed timing. I'm telling you, I used to attend the court proceedings from 10 p.m. and would leave the office late night at 10 p.m. AM to PM. So it has set in motion, a very regime for hard work. So as it is said that law is a jealous mistress. So it always keeps you
Correct.
engaged.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that's what clerkship does. Yes.
Totally
It's
agree,
taught
sir.
us how to work.
So thank you very much, sir, for coming in. और बहुत ही अच्छा experience था. We got to know about all these things जो शायद हम लोग कभी पता ही नहीं चल पाती कि law clerk क्या है, कैसे है, and how it all works.
Thank you very much for having me, Avinash. And it was such an amazing interview. I've had a very good time talking to you, and you're such a nice person. So
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.